Today's the day we are finally putting the engine back together. So here's the front of the engine. You can actually see the cleaner part. These two parts, one right here and one right here. This is the front of the engine, the timing chain cover that we had off earlier. And then this is the engine block. So all the oil on the timing chain cover will flow through here and down into the oil pan, which is really neat. And then here is the filter that sucks up the oil. And I was inspecting this filter. I am guessing this actually got replaced because this is looking really clean. And there were a couple different lock nut washers on the drain pan bolts that were different. So I'm guessing this was taken off early, but not recently, because they were still using a rubber seal, not the paper seal that we're using. So everything looks really good inside the engine block. The only thing I kind of maybe saw right there was a little bit of corrosion and metal coming off or whatever coating they have. It was peeling off a little bit, but the oil filter should do its job and pick up all that stuff over time, because that's a little bit of particles just slowly moving or chipping away. So besides that, looks really good. Here is the drain pan. I just want to note real quick how important it is to make sure your new seal location is perfectly clean and flat. So this is important because if you had a little bump or something here, that paper seal is not going to seal it properly, and you're going to have oil leaking out because you're going to have a high spot with a little gap, and that oil is just going to slowly penetrate out. If it's really bad, it'll actually pour out, but usually it'll just start getting a little wet, and then that's when you see all that moisture underneath, and it'll slowly start dripping over time. But if you get it all clean and flat on both surfaces, you should be good to go. Other thing you might be asking is, why aren't you fixing this? And that is a great question. One, the filter pickup is right here, so I'm not worried about it actually being too close or hitting it. Two, if we flip it over here, you can actually see that there's an indent. The rock actually took out some of the metal. And so if I were to hit this out, I'm worried that it's gonna actually crack and break there, because metal only has a certain amount of elasticity. And especially if you're starting to take out metal and then try to move it back, so it's like a paper clip. If you move the paper clip and bend it, it'll get harder, and then it'll actually start breaking. And this is the point that I'm worried about. If I hit it back out, that this crack might actually break here. So we're gonna leave it there. Not too big of a deal. It's also not a big volume loss as well, so we're gonna leave it. Here's the drain pan seal that came out of the engine. I believe that this is not original, but it's probably done 5 or 10 years after the vehicle was new, because I did see a couple lock nut washers that were slightly different than the other ones. So it was done once upon a time, but I don't believe it was done semi-recently, especially since it's been sitting for 19 years. So this is definitely an old style seal, so I'm glad that we're getting rid of it, because there was a lot of moisture all around this seal. And that one's gone. We're going to put in the new one and install it here real soon. All right, so we got the Permatex all around the engine seal. Drain pan is coming in. So we got our bolts here with our 13mm socket. I just have a nice like 5 or 6 inch extension, and I've been going up here on each of these bolts and just putting them in by hand. You missed the really fun part though, because there's a nut that comes down, so you can actually align it, or a bolt that comes down. And so when we place it up, you put a nut on there, so then it holds it into place. And then we also had a jack that held up the oil pan, and then I could tighten down one in the front, and then once I got those two tightened down, we got rid of the jack, and then slowly just started putting all the bolts around. And I'm just making sure I put them all in by hand. All the threads have been cleaned on these bolts. They were really grimy, and I didn't want all that grime to go back in the threads on the engine block. So we cleaned them all up with the wire brush and then the parts cleaner, and they're just sliding in like they're brand new. So that's really nice. Just making sure these are all hand tight, going in nice and smooth, which they are. The seal didn't shift. I think we're doing a pretty good install here. And lastly, just get them all tight, and then we'll do 15 foot-pounds of torque all the way around. So to drain the diff fluid, some people use the back of a wrench, but that's not really recommended here in this place, in this household. So we have this special part right here that is a male of the part. It's just basically a giant flathead, and then you got to stick some sort of pipe or something through here to loosen it. And I've already broke it loose, kinda. So, gotta loosen it. And there's 20-year-old oil right there coming out.
Yuck.
And then here's the plug. So it's got this giant female like flathead side, and then this fits in nice and perfect. So we got the right tool to do the right job here. For the front and rear axles, we're putting SAE 80W90, and we're doing a little unique here since we don't have the radiator or anything. We've got ourselves a funnel with a little hose that's going all the way to the fill plug down there. We're giving her one final engine degreaser, frame cleaning. So when we had everything apart, we realized the radiator was a little corroded on the fins, and so we got it tested, pressure tested, and it failed. So what we ended up doing is having a complete restoration of the radiator. So a radiator guy took the whole entire core out and then put a new core in. And this is actually a more efficient core than the previous one was. The fins are a lot closer, so there's going to be a lot more cooling. This is more like a modern radiator on the inside, so it'll be a lot better, have a lot better cooling, which is always good, because as my grandpa says, the quickest thing that will stop your vehicle from rolling is heat. So having something that cools properly will really help out with that. The frame of it is all original. This is still our frame here, but the whole entire core insert is all brand new. We do have a brand new radiator cap as well. Hoses. This came out beautifully, and now we are going to install it. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing is full of coolant and water, and it will be the first time in like 2 to 3 months this vehicle is going to get started. It's going to have a brand new rear axle seal, a brand new front main seal, brand new radiator, brand new water pump, refurbished front timing chain cover. This thing is looking so good.
Stay tuned.
Radiator hoses right here. There's the new water pump, new radiator hoses. Still got to attach the water heater, but we got to get a new fan for it. The fan is broken, so we're gonna get that all fixed up. All this is looking good. And then the overflow hose and suction hose is right here. So it actually, this little tube right here, if you can kind of see it, will suck up the water from the bottom, just like those brand new like Windex bottles do. And then it'll suck it up if it needs more coolant. And then if it gets really hot and all the water expands, it gets dropped off into the reservoir. And then if the reservoir is overflown, then it goes on through this one, which is kinked a little bit. It's all brand new hoses. That looks a little bit better. And then just gets dropped off onto the side of the road, just down there, right by the frame. Brand new water pump for the windshield wiper fluid. That is working really good. So excited about that. Everything is starting to work really well. Also sprayed all of the rubber components on the suspension with silicone spray to make sure all these rubber parts have gotten some sort of silicone to make sure they're not going to crack after 19 years of just sitting there. All right, so we're going to let the engine run for about 15 seconds, and then I'll turn it off just to make sure we got proper oil level. And then also the coolant is going to drop down because it's going to be circulating through the engine. We don't have any coolant in the engine right now, so just let it circulate, and then all the fluid levels will get to normal. We'll turn it off and then check the fluid levels. Choke is out. 3. Now this water pump, or this windshield washer fluid pump, is not working, so we're going to go ahead and replace it with a Proline Rover's North windshield wiper pump. And looks pretty simple here. We're going to go ahead and mount it where it was originally, right here, and then connect up the hose, ground it, and power, and should be good to go. All right,